Hello and welcome to another booktube video from me, Lauren, from Lauren and the Books. And today is my June wrap-up. So I'm going to be talking about the books that I read in the month of June. Now, I only read 9 books in the month of June, which I'm aware is still a humongous amount, but 9 books for me, I normally read about 15. These are the things I blame it on. Love Island, number 1. Number 2, Food Fever or Cooking Fever. It's a game I've got on my phone. I've been playing it constantly. I've been obsessed with it. So those are the reasons I haven't been reading as much. 2 of the books that I read out of my 9 are audiobook rereads as well. So cheeky of me. But I'll tell you what we can do though. We can spend a bit more time discussing la books now, because normally I have to power through them. But there's no point keep going on about it now. Let's just get on with it. So the first book that I finished was The Cows by Dawn Porter. I believe I spoke about this at the end of my wrap-up last month. This I think I gave 2 stars, and I think this is quite telling because I can't really remember much about it. I know it follows 3 women and how they're sort of... well, I think I can't even bloody remember. One can't have kids, one's having a terrible breakup, one gets filmed masturbating on the train, etc, etc. But I don't really remember much about it. What I do remember is that I felt like it was a bit... like these women were sort of caricatures of strong independent women. I just didn't love it. I found it a bit blur. So I won't waste any more time talking about it because it just wasn't for me. However, I do really like Dawn Porter, so that's a shame really. The next book that I finished was a audiobook. It was the audiobook of The Amber Spyglass by Philip Pullman. I've got a really bad cough, like considering it's the middle of the summer. People don't have coughs in the summer. This is a reread for me, a re-listen. No, not a re-listen because I haven't listened to it before, but I really love the audiobooks of his Dark Materials. They're done like a radio play, so Philip Pullman narrates throughout, but they have different voices for different characters, and it just works so beautifully. It's really cozy, enjoyable read, and now I have them all, I would definitely listen and re-listen to them because I just think they're complete treats to listen to and really well done on the audio. That's going to be annoying the whole way through, isn't it? So yeah, I gave that 5 stars. As I said, I had read it before and really loved it. I feel like you're really far away. Do you want to come a bit closer? Hey, yeah. Oh, now it's a bit too close. So yeah, 5 stars. Really loved it. The next book I read was a little tiny picture book called Nightshift by Debbie Gliori. This is published by Hotkey Books, and this is about depression. I saw this in the library. I got it out from the library. It's really beautifully illustrated. It's all in black and white. And it's about depression being seen as a dragon. So some pages are like this. It's really beautifully done. There is a bit of colour in there, look, that bit there. So yeah, I found this fine. I could have done with a bit more story. Like, I just feel like there's a little bit... Like, I know it's a picture book and that's the point, but I just could have done with a little bit more story with it. But it is beautiful. It really reminds me of the Fox and the Star, the Coralie Bickford-Smith one. So yeah, the next book, however, is one that I gave 5 stars. I really loved this very much. And I mentioned this on my favourites and in my best books of 2017 so far. That is English Animals by Laura Kay. So this is a book about a woman, Mirka, who has come to work in the UK as a au pair. She believes she's going to be working as an au pair. She gets to this house in the countryside and she discovers that there are no children there. She will not be working as an au pair. She's going to be working as a taxidermist assistant. Whenever I go to say the word taxidermist, I always want to say dermatologist. And she won't be working as a dermatologist assistant. She'll be working as a taxidermist assistant. It looks at her relationship. So the couple that she's going to stay with, it looks at her relationship with the chap in the relationship. They form a very strong friendship. It looks at the relationship with the lady in the relationship who she has romantic feelings for, and they are somewhat reciprocated. It's a really good focus on friendship and relationships, and I really love the way it was written. So it's written in a sort of unusual, almost uncomfortable way to start with, because English is not Mirka's first language. So I really love the style of that, and although it took me a chapter to get into it because I was a bit like, oh, this is a bit... And I remember I did a buddy read of this with Simon from Savage Reads and Mercedes from Mercy's Bookish Musings, and Simon said, oh, it's a bit like, not being disrespectful in any way, like it feels a bit clunky, and it absolutely does, because English is not Mirka's first language. But you really get into the feeling of it, and whether it be it's written so that Mirka's English is constantly improving, and her her use of the English language is constantly improving, or you're just getting used to the way it's written. By the end, it feels like second nature to be reading that. I really, really love this. I thought it was really special, and I keep thinking about it, and I was really, really impressed with this. So 5 stars, as I said, my favourite book of the month, and one of my favourite books of the year. I haven't heard anyone else mention this apart from, I really love this Fox guy as well. I hadn't seen this anywhere else apart from the fact that Simon and Mercedes and I read it. So if you've read this, let me know what you think, because I'd be really interested to hear people's thoughts. I really, really loved this. I really, really loved it. Oh. The next book is also a book that I mentioned in my Best Books of 2017. I didn't mention it as a Best Book of 2017. God, it's hot in here. Because I hadn't finished it. But that is The Power by Naomi Alderman, which I got out from the library. I don't have it here with me. That's why it's not in my hands. And when I was reading it, I was so pumped for it. And I kept saying that I felt like it was going to be my best book of 2017. For me, I loved it up until about 3/4 of the way through, and it just sort of trailed off for me, I'll be honest. I ended up giving it 4 stars, but I think it's probably more of a 3.5. I really like the whole feel of it. So it tells, it's about women, girls waking up and being able to have a power in their hands. Coincidentally, The Power by Little Mix is a song that I've been listening to a hell of a lot recently, and it's making me feel like I'm proud to be a woman and powerful. But anyway, onwards. It is about women, girls waking up and finding out that they've got this power in their hand to inflict pain. It's like an electrical force, and younger girls are able to teach older women how to use it, and it means that society has shifted and that women are seen as are treated completely differently to they have been in the past because they now have this power. It's told from multiple perspectives, which I really liked. Some perspectives I liked much more. So it's a real vast range of perspectives as well. So there was like Roxy, this girl whose dad is is like a gang lord. There was a male journalist, a woman called Eve who was previously known as Ali, I think her name was, who'd been in care for her whole life and had been abused, and now had become this sort of like through sort of circumstance had become the head of this church that worshipped the power, and things like that. I really, really loved it, but for me, I just felt like it trailed off towards the end, and I felt really disappointed in it because I had such high hopes, even more so in a way where you'd read a book 3/4 of the way through and they would be like, yeah, it was all right, and then the ending's amazing. The reverse of that is that you fucking love a book the whole way almost, and then the last sort of like I just didn't feel excited by it. I want to listen to the audiobook of it. I'm told that the audiobook has different narrators per chapter, so I think maybe I'll listen to that. Maybe not straight away, maybe I'll leave it till next year. But yeah, I feel like maybe I would get a bit more out of it. But I did enjoy it. I gave it 3.5 stars, but for me it just trailed off. Who else has read it and what did you think? Please. The next book is Into the Water by Paula Hawkins, who is the author of Girl on the Train. I read this for my online book club, and we're actually going to be discussing it. I'm going on holiday in a mere matter of hours with Mercedes, Eleanor and Caitlin from their booktube channels. From those guys. And we said that we would read this, and I've just seen a snarky comment I put in there, and we said that we would read this and discuss this on the holiday. So I didn't love this. I didn't, on reflection, I'm finding it difficult to say maybe I even liked it. I am very, very easy to put my hands up and say Paula Hawkins can absolutely write a page turner, because I was compelled to read it. Oh, lovely bookmark there. I did want to keep on, but I just didn't really care so much. There's loads of characters in this. I mean, like, loads and loads. So much so, I think when I was talking about one of my lovely chat videos, I went through and I think the first 9 chapters are all different characters. I feel like it's a bit contrived, and there's a few moments in it where I feel like she's written it because she thinks it's going to be made into a film or a TV series. There's a few moments. One of the ones being here is this moment that I've done this, and it's just so pathetic. So I won't give any names or anything here, but it said she had a paring knife in her left hand and was gripping its blade so tightly that that blood was dripping onto the floor. So that's the end of a chapter. The beginning of the next chapter is that she was fucking cutting onions. Like, it just felt a bit Nancy Drew and naff, like, please read on. And I could almost see that being like the end of a like the end of a TV episode or something. I just felt a bit like about the whole thing. I like the fact there was a lot of women characters in there. I did feel like I liked that, but also like it left very ambiguous in the end. Like, and I won't give anything away, but it is left very ambiguous, and I feel like, was it needed to be left ambiguous? It's not like this massive piece of literary fiction that's groundbreaking. Like, I feel like she could have just wrapped it up. So yeah, a bit unimpressed. I think I gave it 2 stars, but on reflection, I didn't enjoy it, and that's going to the charity shop. Sorry, Paula. Very brave of her though to write, like, I mean, she could have just written Another Girl on the Train, really, but she didn't, so well done for that. The next book that I listened to was the audiobook of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire is my favourite Harry Potter book. I love the Goblet of Fire. I love the Triwizard Tournament. I love Christmas in that book. I love the fact that Ron starts realising that he fancies Hermione because she's off with Crumb. I like Cedric, and I really cried on the way home from work listening to the audiobook, the bit where Dumbledore does the talk at the end of the school year where he's talking about how we should remember Cedric Diggory. And I felt really sad when I was re-listening to that, and yeah, it's my favourite Harry Potter book. I really really love it, and it was a real treat to revisit it. So we're on to Goblet of Fire next. Goblet of Fire, no, I've just done that one. We're on to Order of the Phoenix next. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, yeah. The Order of the Phoenix next. And probably listen to the audiobook of that because I just love doing it. It's such a treat for me. The next book I read was On a Girl by Maggie Thrash. This is a graphic memoir of Maggie Thrash's childhood and the fact that she used to go away to a camp every year, and she come to realise that she was gay. I really like the art style in this. So it's done quite simply, and it's in quite this sort of palette that's very autumnal to me. So there's lots of like burnt oranges and things like that, and this sort of nice purple and stuff. I really like this and enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars though. I thought it was going to be a 5-star, but I gave it 4 stars because I felt like there wasn't an ending. Like, it just sort of, not in a way where I feel like everything has to be wrapped up nicely, which you would be led to believe because I've just said about how Into the Water ended very ambiguously. But yeah, I just felt like there wasn't much of an ending for me. It just felt quite abrupt. It felt like it was leading all the way. I keep finding bookmarks in these books. I'm wondering where all my bookmarks are. It felt like it was leading one way, and then all of a sudden that didn't happen. It was like the end. But yeah, I did enjoy this, and I think the artwork's beautiful, and I really like a coming-of-age story, which is what this is. So yeah, enjoyed it, and a great read for Pride Month, which I didn't read in Pride Month, but I think June and July both count as Pride Month, actually. So yeah, very much enjoyed that. And then the last book that I read was Mad Girl by Bryony Gordon. This I read for my book club at work. I really, really enjoyed this. However, I will say I do feel like there's some sort of like trigger warnings in here. So Bryony Gordon is a woman who suffered with OCD her entire life, but has also had sort of eating disorders, drug dependency, things like that throughout. She's a journalist for the Telegraph, and she decided to sort of write a book about her experiences with OCD and things like that. So I've mentioned trigger warnings before, and sort of understood about them, and have thought, oh well, that's what this book's got trigger. I've said, oh, this book's got trigger warnings, but I suffer from anxiety. You may well know that. I've made a video about it. A is for anxiety. I will link that down below. And reading this, whilst very interesting and enjoyable and eye-opening, I felt it bringing on a bit of anxiety in a way where I was like, I don't know, maybe if I felt sympathetic towards her, but it definitely brought something out of me that made me feel a bit more anxious. I loved this though. I really, really liked it. There's a really beautiful bit, as well as it being interesting about finding out what OCD, because I think OCD is put to us in a way where it's like, oh, I love cleaning loads, I'm a bit OCD. Oh, I have to make sure I turn the light off and click my fingers twice. Like, real OCD is fucking terrifying. Like, there's moments where Bryony Gordon thinks she's like fucking abused her own child and has murdered someone and then blanked it from her mind. Like, it was eye-opening, completely eye-opening. So she really gets the message across about that. It feels really real, and one thing that I loved about this the whole way through is that she was reiterating and really hitting home the fact that she's had a very normal upbringing, she's had a very happy childhood, and she keeps saying like this could happen to anyone, this could happen, like she doesn't want it. She wants to get the message across that like you don't just suffer from mental health if you've been abused as a child, or if your parent was dependent on drugs, or like this could happen to anyone at any time. And I really admired her for that, and I really took that away from this, and when we were discussing it in the book club, a lot of people were saying that. One part of this book I absolutely adored is the part where she goes on a boat trip to the Arctic Circle, on a boat with I think like 9 men and her, and that was written so beautifully. So as well as being a really informative account of OCD and drug dependency and bulimia and eating disorders and everything, it also was beautiful. Like that middle bit was just so gorgeous, and there's a moment where I actually cried a lot throughout this book, where she's talking about changing her tampon on the Arctic Circle. Can you hear that fucking seagull? He's making such a noise. Changing her tampon in the Arctic Circle and just sort of feeling more herself than she had done in such a long time, and I just found that so beautiful. I really would recommend this, but I would go to it sort of if you've suffered from, obviously I haven't suffered from eating disorders or OCD or anything, but anxiety and like mental health issues, this sort of trigger, I keep using the word triggered, but yeah, I guess triggered is probably the word, triggered something in me. So I'd go to it with sort of, I'd go to it with that in mind, is what I'm saying to you. So yeah, but really love that. I'd say like 4.5 stars. Really enjoyed that. So yeah, those are the books that I read in the month of, I feel like I've gradually just got slower. See you later. Those are the books that I read in the month of June. What did you guys read in the month of June? Would love to hear if you've read any of these things, or what your bestest thing you read in June was. Can't believe it's July now. Can't believe I'm going on holiday in a few hours. And I'll see you all again soon for another BookTube video.